Arlington Whenever News, Episode 3, The Miserable Christmas Special. Hello, and welcome to this third installment of Arlington Whenever News. Yes, this is the Miserable Christmas Special. This program will examine a special kind of misery. Whereas there are some kinds of misery that are individual and private, there is another kind of misery that extends and spreads beyond the original or intended sufferer. This extended misery begins with Arlington Independent Media, or AIM, but it also reaches other individuals and organizations. The management of Arlington Independent Media was expecting a grant payment from Arlington County in April of 2024. Cash for operations had run short, and a prepared payroll in March had gone unfunded. Pay stubs had been sent showing payment, but the employees had received no money. This meant that the wage and tax records of the payroll service were inaccurate. This situation could have been somewhat remedied when the April grant money arrived, but Arlington County decided to withhold payment until the completion of an independent audit ordered by the county. At that time, it was announced the audit would be completed, quote, as soon as possible, unquote. However, Arlington County decided to withhold payment of both the operations grant and other funding described as available under the PEG, Public Educational and Government Grant Program. This left Arlington Independent Media unable to pay not only its employees, but also its rent, utilities, operations expenses, as well as other companies who had provided goods and services and had submitted invoices. This was the beginning of the spread of the misery. Upon receiving news of the total freeze of Arlington County funding, AIM's Board of Directors decided to terminate the employment of its entire staff, since there was no certainty as to when, or even if, it would be possible to pay them. However, upon termination, some employees were entitled to compensation for accrued but unused vacation time, which would not otherwise have come due had they remained employed. This increased the amount of Arlington Independent Media's debt. While the public embarrassment of Arlington Independent Media was a source of some misery, there was also the personal misery of the staff, who had not only lost their employment, but had also failed to receive payment for services already rendered and could not even access any paid vacation time. However, the misery did not end there. People sometimes forget that businesses that provide building rentals consist of other human beings. When a landlord establishment loses a part of their revenue, it has an adverse effect on those people as well. In addition, the contractors and providers of goods and services also suffer financial setbacks. Some of these may be small businesses who find it difficult to absorb such losses. Meanwhile, the audit that was to be completed, quote, as soon as possible, unquote, remained unfinished when Arlington County's fiscal year closed at the end of July. This meant that whatever funding had been budgeted for that fiscal year was no longer available. The expected April funding that had been delayed was now described as lost. There were several meetings of Arlington Independent Media's members and board at which updates were provided concerning the state of the audit and the hope that funds would soon be released. Here is what County Board member and AIM liaison Takis Karantonis said at the October 27th meeting.
First of all, the finding and the status of the audit. Let me preface this by first, again, thanking you for having worked with the auditors. The audit is basically ready. The report is ready. I've been briefed by the Department of Management and Finance. There are very few things that are left to be cleared. The process of that is the auditors provide this audit to the county manager, basically, the Department of Management and Finance. They go through, they probably have questions, clarifications, etc. These are clarified. I've been assured that within the next 2 weeks, the following things will happen. Number one, all county board members will be briefed, myself included. I haven't been briefed on the findings. I've been briefed on the progress of the report. The second thing is the auditee, so you will be informed and briefed on the findings. And that's extremely important because if you want, my presence here today is part one of this process of listening to the auditee. So you will have plenty of opportunity to provide your version or your response to the findings, etc. There is even a formal process of responding to the findings about 30 days after you have received the audit report, and this is going to happen. I'm pretty certain the next couple of weeks, probably right after Election Day, when everybody's mind will be able to focus on anything else but Election Day.
At this point, I would add that Election Day was November 5th. As of the date of this recording, 42 days have elapsed.
In terms of what you're looking forward in findings, as I told you, you have to be first briefed on this. But I can give you an idea of the big buckets of what we are going to be talking about. First of all, we will be talking about commingling capital and operating expenses. Something that shouldn't happen but happened, and that has a lot of consequences. So this is a very big first bucket. The second thing is we will be looking about amounts of money that have been spent for not permissible or other reasons for than what they have been applied for. So non-eligible, non-permissible expenses. The third big bucket will be about the lack of supporting documentation on several expenses. That doesn't mean that the expenses are by definition not problematic, that they're problematic. That only says we cannot find any supporting documentation about what these expenses were about and how they were, approved, deployed, paid, and what is the documentation that supports the ability to audit them. You talked a lot about consultant expenses, etc. This fits in this big bucket. The fourth is there is a subcategory of questionable business expenses that will be also part of the conversation. And the fourth big bucket is about governance and essentially the separation or segregation of duties, which is, when you write a check that somebody else has to sign off on that, so there has to be somebody there, etc. One of the biggest problems that I found with requests for funding is that sometimes there was a significant lack of transparency about who is the treasurer, does the treasurer, is there a treasurer, etc. So these are the big ones, but of course there are smaller and many other ones. So they will be detailed then. Unfortunately, I'm not in a at liberty to divulge more than that. Because you have to see the report first, and this is coming very, very soon.
The report coming very, very soon. Once again, we have no information yet as to whether or not anyone has received the report.
So there is today some disappointment, lingering disappointment about two things. First of all, that AIM's production, the ability of AIM to produce content, etc., has been declining, and right after March, understandably to a certain degree, but still a fact, it collapsed. I mean, there was no production, there was nothing happening right now. I'm in my youth, I've been a radio pirate. I operated a 30 watts FM station completely legally in my home country, but tolerated. So I know that there is nothing more resilient than this kind of media. So you can do that if you are really into that. So for me, yeah, I was expecting some flame and spirit to be still there, but there was barely any, and that was really concerning because the core of the mission, as we understood that, is give voice to those who don't have it typically, and try to empower people who enable empower. And I thought that there would be some residual energy to come.
Yes, AIM's production collapsed after March. However, as a radio pirate, Mr. Karantonis was not expected to comply with regulations, nor was he expected to provide training and other resources for others. I would also add that individual programs did actually continue, only they were posted to YouTube, Mixcloud, and other streaming platforms. It is not as if nothing came from the AIM producers.
There is concern about the AIM board's ability, and this comes from what we know today and we didn't know before, to steer and effectively control the organization, and the lack of transparency.
Regarding lack of transparency, we have to note that the Arlington County website news section even now does not even mention the AIM audit or the funding freeze, and the county board has not replied to an October 17th email. 2 months later. Surely, transparency ought to apply to both organizations. More bad news came on November 4th, when it was announced that Arlington County had served Arlington Independent Media with a tax lien that froze Arlington Independent Media's bank account. That made it possible for AIM to use membership deposits or donations. AIM's treasurer stated that dues could be sent to her at the AIM address of 3700 South 4 Mile Run Drive, but a check that was mailed there was returned, marked "Not at this address, unable to forward." The official occupant for that address is Arlington Cultural Affairs, with whom AIM was reportedly sharing space, but telephone messages left for them on December 7th and December 9th have not been returned. In addition, An October 17th email message to the Arlington County Board asking for updates on the status of the audit has received no reply, despite a follow-up phone call placed on December 9th when the county receptionist apologized for the delay, located the email, and promised a reply. For the other people who just want to find out what is going on, the misery continues. Meanwhile, the Board of Arlington Independent Media has had its own problems. 2 remarks from AIM meetings illustrate one of the problems.
We had one more asking if there will be a booth at the county fair this year.
Would there be a booth at the county fair this year?
Yes.
All right, yes, there would be a booth at the county fair this year. I did want to let you know, Hef, that the not being at the fair was not a money situation. It was purely a decision first on that there was no plan to officially be there. There was a hope and an idea to do it because
it was announced at one of the previous meetings. I have the notes, but it doesn't matter. It's over.
Because it was my idea, so I know it wasn't a plan. It sounded like a plan.
I just thought it was a plan because they said it was going to happen.
Yeah,
It's over.
yes,
Moving
but
on.
I wanted to let you know that the reasoning, because I think the reasoning will be important to you. The reasoning was that I wanted to be sure that when we go out into the community and talk about AIM, we have something clear and concrete to talk about.
The rationale provided calls for further examination. There is a difference between promoting and offering something for sale and asking for help. While it is true that Arlington Independent Media did not have much to offer for sale, they were certainly in need of help. There are many charitable organizations who ask for help all the time. For example, the Make-A-Wish Foundation does not even suggest that the children who benefit from their activities will do anything to repay their donors. They do not need to sell anything. However, given the choice between trying to sell and asking for help, Arlington Independent Media's board chose to do neither. There were 2 possible outcomes from such a request for help. Fair attendees could ignore the request or even ridicule it, or some concerned individual or business could either make a donation or spread the word throughout their individual or business communities that would result in a later donation. Due to AIM's complete absence from the county fair, neither outcome was even possible. Ironically, AIM did stage a successful fundraiser among their members to pay off an American Express debt from one of its employees. However, when asked about another fundraiser, perhaps to break the lease with JBG Smith, the AIM board said that they would not even try. In fact, no other fundraisers were announced. Consequently, AIM did not have the funds to pay off the subsequent tax lien to avoid the freezing of their bank account. It was also announced on November 4th that Arlington Independent Media would need to conduct their own physical inventory of equipment. The email message seeking volunteers for that inventory was only sent on December 17th, 2024, with proposed participation dates of December 21st and December 27th. Even prior to March of this year, it was evident that AIM's management had overspent. But what was not known to some was the terms of the grant agreement between Arlington County and AIM, which stated, All of AIM's records with respect to any matters covered by this agreement shall be made available to Arlington County staff or any of their authorized representatives at any time during normal business hours, as often as deemed necessary, to audit, examine, and make excerpts or transcripts of all relevant data. Arlington County shall provide AIM at least 15 days' notice of any audit or inspection of records. Failure of AIM to comply with the above required audit requirements will constitute a violation of this agreement and may result in the withholding of future payments. It goes on to state, third-party audit. Subject to the above notice requirement, the county may, at its own expense, require an external third-party audit of AIM's records, financial or otherwise, as often as deemed necessary, to examine and make excerpts or transcripts of all relevant data. The phrase, "as often as deemed necessary," is significant since the determination of when necessary is given to Arlington County. Hence, examinations, excerpts, and audits could be deemed necessary as often as the county management wishes to conduct them. Incidentally, Arlington County's own financial records are not subject to such scrutiny by the taxpayers and others who provide the county with their own funding. By now, viewers have probably noticed the absence of much actual news following the previous episode. That is because of the lack of response from those who were asked for information. Thus, as far as can be determined as of this recording, the former AIM staffers remain unpaid, their payroll records have not been corrected, the JBG Smith lease has not been terminated, the county tax lien has not been settled, and the unpaid rent on 3700 South 4 Mile Run Drive continues to accumulate. The status of the other storage space on North Quincy Street remains unknown. Finally, the Arlington Independent Media YouTube channel has no uploads after the November 4th, 2024 meeting and is still not open for individual producer uploads. Hence, the title of this episode, The Miserable Christmas Special. However, not everyone involved has reason to feel the misery. The members of the Arlington County Board are doing just fine, thank you. Here's a little background. Prior to 2016, the County Board's salary caps, their maximum annual compensation, were $57,337 for regular board members and $63,071 for the board chair. However, it is a peculiar rule that the Arlington County Board has the ability to change their own salaries. In 2019, when the board previously voted to increase their base salary caps to $89,851 with $95,734 for the board chair, they declared that these were not actual increases, just increases of the maximum. However, by 2023, all county board salaries were at their respective maximums, and in June 2023, they approved new salary caps of $119,833 for board members and $125,460 for the chair. In only 8 years, they have voted to nearly double their potential pay. For reference, the average salary of an Arlington County police officer is reported at around $87,877 per year for full-time work. The position involves considerable personal risk. The average annual salary of an Arlington County sanitation worker is $40,875. The position involves considerable hard labor. The average salary of an Arlington County public school teacher is $75,385. The position carries a risk of a school shooting or bomb threat. County board members have protested that their positions require full-time participation, but this raises some questions about some of the activities they perform. For example, county board members are often present at ribbon-cutting ceremonies, or during the Columbia Pike Blues Festival, or at the Arlington County Fair. However, many other Arlingtonians are also present at these events, and they don't get to count their time spent as part of their employment. I have personally run a camera for coverage of such events for Arlington Independent Media, and I didn't get paid a dime. In the wonderful world of government contracting, employees are required to track and report their time spent on their various activities on a daily basis. It would be interesting to see just how much time Arlington County board members spend on activities that would be called recreational for regular citizens. That's enough news and commentary for now.